Hello, everyone, and welcome back to the Politdigm Podcast. My name is Red, and today I'm joined by my co host, Alpha.
Once again, I am present.
And today is the 18th of September, and that is a Monday. Um, and yeah, we have a very interesting topic for you today. Or this week's blog was written by Alpha, and it's was long as fuck. Very long blog this week. So if you're not really into reading, this blog is going to be perfect for you. Although it is going to be even longer. So I don't know
This
if
podcast, you mean?
did I say blog again? God damn it. But yeah, if you're worried about the time, then yeah, I don't know which one is worst, but definitely this one is
Well,
more
some
digestible if
people
you're if
rather take more time listening to an audiobook than reading the goddamn book, so.
yeah. Anyways, before we do start, I do have to say, I do have to give a little quick reminder that in the description, if you're on YouTube, if you're on listening to other platforms, then check out our social media where you'll get constant updates for everything related to our vlog and our podcast.
Our vlog?
Or blog. I did say it right that time, that I know. So it's on you. You're
Uh,
the deaf one. I'm not the crazy one. And so make sure to follow us there. You'll get a constant just announcements and always new information about us. Whilst you're there, or again, just at the description, you can find a link to our Discord. Make sure to join the Discord because we want more people there, or we want people there. And we would like to get to know our listeners better. And also, of course, if you like our content and if you like this podcast, then make sure to support us on Patreon, where you can get access to a special tier on our Discord, where you'll be able to submit questions to the podcast Q&A, which will be at the end of each episode. So, with that said, take the stage, Alpha.
Thank you very much. So, full disclosure, I have completely forgotten as to why I wrote this blog. I wish that was a joke, but no. I realized today before getting on the podcast that I didn't remember why I wrote the blog. And if you don't know what the blog is, it's a deep dive into incel culture and the incel phenomenon. What I can tell you is how surprised I was at the gravity of the situation when it comes to incel culture. If you have been on the internet for any amount of time, I think you have a formed idea of what an incel is. Oh yeah, it's that guy that never leaves his home and probably moderates a Reddit or Discord, if not both, and cries about how women only date himbos while the nice guys can't get anyone in their lives. That was the idea that I had of an incel. And yes, that is certainly part of it, but it's far
It's more of
from
a
the truth.
mild representation of
It is.
it's like the layman incel, I guess.
So let's start with some definitions. So we have this thing called the manosphere, which basically is a conglomerate of online forums and communities and people that are, well, first of all, mostly right wing, part of a men's rights movement, fully against the feminist movement, sorry, um, and most important of all for this conversation, base themselves on this idea of the red pill, with the red pill being, of course, a nod to the Matrix.
Which can I just add something real quick, which I
Sure.
find very funny. For those who don't know, the Matrix was written by two trans women,
I did
and
not know that.
and so if you didn't know, the entirety of the Matrix was an allegory to the trans experience.
I
Right?
can see that.
It's
Yeah,
the
I
idea
can
that
see that.
if you can either take one pill, aka living as you do right now, and kind of live in a made up world where you aren't truly yourself and where you always feel like there's something missing. But it's also comfortable because you're, going with the flow or what society wants for you, right?
Yep.
Or you take the other pill, you take the red pill, and which is an allegory for taking estrogen in their case, right, or taking hormones, and transitioning and becoming your true self. So it's really funny the idea that people like incels talk about the red pill all the time and saying how they take the red pill, right? But they're talking about, you're comparing it to something relating to trans people, right? And how, in the actual sense of what the Matrix was supposed to be, taking the red pill means that you're taking, well, hormones, right? So it's very funny to me every time I hear that because it's like such a ironic and like really like only people that don't know what the fuck it means that would actually say that shit, right? It's so
Which is
funny.
mostly right-wing supporters, but I digress. So, the idea of the red pill is this conglomerate of beliefs that form the the basis for the ideologies of the manosphere. And I actually have them written down, and it's verbatim. First one: women are hypergamers. I'm pretty sure I'm not pronouncing that correct, but hypergamers. I'm pretty
Gaming?
sure.
What? Hyper
G,
gaming?
yeah, it's it basically is a
You mean
phenomenon.
hypergamy?
Yes, but plural hypergamers.
Hypergam Harpergam Miss Harpergamus, I think.
Hypergamous.
I don't
It's
know.
basically this idea that if you have a population whose beauty and physical attractiveness is described on a scale from 1 to 10, in a perfect society, uh, people with a beauty of 5 out of 10 would seek to have relationships with people whose beauty is also 5 out of 10. And so everyone would be evenly matched. The
Yeah.
red pill believes that women are constantly seeking affection and relations with people that are levels, physically speaking, in terms of attractiveness, above them. And so what happens is supposedly that a majority of the female population actually is only attracted to a small percentage of men. Now, I have plenty of problems with this because, first,
What the fuck?
the idea that the perfect society is restricted to people of a quantitative beauty only dating people with the same quantitative beauty is stupid.
Yeah.
You blame women for doing this, but guys do exactly the same thing. And besides, I have seen many unattractive people have beautiful partners because of their personality.
Yeah. True.
But let's move on. So, the second idea is exactly that. Only about 20% of men attract women. And the reason as to why the personality thing is sort of refuted within the manosphere is the belief that dating is nothing but a sexual market. So the ideas of love and affection are not true. They have nothing to do with the actual real world dating aspect of life.
Yeah.
You don't
When
date
you
for love, you date for mating and reproducing and sexual pleasure,
in
apparently.
a social status too. It's
Yes, and its
it's
social
it's so
status.
weird because like when you consume or are exposed to any type of content in the manosphere, which I have, but always in like a almost like a what's the word, in a sarcastic way.
Yeah.
Like I would watch that shit. He's always I would I not so much recently, but I definitely in the past I've watched a lot of YouTubers who would like create compilations or like would react to manosphere content on TikTok, for example, and it's always
Yep.
them making fun of it, being like, "Holy shit, what the fuck is this? These people are crazy." And it's
Yeah.
always funny because like you always hear that exact thing you're saying, which is not even like us using that word. It's they who use that word, which is literally like the market. They are
Yeah, the
constantly,
expression is literally sexual
yeah,
marketplace.
they're constantly talking about as if life is this sort of like sexual marketplace where you're looking for partners and there's like almost like these, as if there's transactions between people. It's such a weird,
It's
fucked up,
extremely capitalist way to look at
it's
relationships,
such a
though.
fucked up like mindset to have towards
Yeah.
a relationship. It is so horrendous. Like
It's transsexual. Like
it's
your husband is your boss.
yeah, it's disgusting to me because
Yeah, it's frightening and disgusting and extremely degrading. But we
yeah,
haven't gotten, in my opinion, to the worst part,
true.
which is the last point that I have on my notes, that feminism is bad because it gives women all the power. Now, if you've looked at
If you've
anything
if you've
feminism
ever
related,
lived a life
yeah,
any day on this fucking planet,
you know that's not the case.
yeah,
Feminism calls for inequality. But let's go deeper into the rabbit hole. They actually also claim that feminism is bad for women because women actually don't want to do the things that they say that they want with the feminist movement. Women, at the prime of their lives, really desire to bear offspring and to reproduce.
to
And
be
the
submissive and
idea
breedable.
that they should work and not be stuck at home and have an actual life outside of their partners and not be a housewife and be able to choose something else is a result of brainwash. You want to say something about this, Red?
Uh, ooh, look at these skis. They're jiggling, right? This activate your brain, little dumbasses. Jesus Christ, such a such a
Yeah.
little babies. It's
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 an
it's
extremely like how do you go up to these types of people and say, okay, this isn't true? Because the whole problem is that the manosphere is based on beliefs that are so like room
ancient.
level IQ that you can't debate them with logic
Yeah,
because it's not logical. It's f-
nine,
fallacious.
nine,
It's
90
literal logical
percent of
fallacies.
their 90% of their comebacks, and that's to be nice to them. That's I probably would say more 100% of them, or just simply a synonym or it could also just be replaced with nah,
Yeah,
no, no, that's not right. I don't.
I didn't say that, but you
That's
did.
not
But I didn't
true.
say that.
I mean, it's not just I didn't say that. It's just like oh,
It's not
women,
true.
but women want to be valued. No, but
I'm not saying it's my
nah,
anecdotal evidence.
nah. They're being brainwashed. It's like, bro, what, huh?
Yeah.
What the fuck?
And the response that it's my worldview with my world experiences.
Yeah,
Like,
it's
how do you
that's
translate your world experiences into reality? It goes against everything that you're saying because you say, okay, uh, that can't be true because this is not the case for
because I saw
these
this one
people.
thing which
And then
contradicts
they
it.
go, yeah, I saw this one thing and this is my worldview. Okay, but you're passing your worldview to reality. It no longer is your worldview.
Yeah, you're people. A lot of people, and this is not just a bit of a little, very small little side thing here, which is people a lot of times forget that an opinion, right, something that you have viewed with your own eyes and an opinion that you have formed does not mean that it's facts. And that is exactly the issue that they do, that they have, is that they will see one thing, they'll see one behavior from one or a very small group of people, and then be like, all right, this is just how the world is, therefore this is facts, therefore I must now run with this for the rest of my life and assume that this is just how life
Yeah.
is. And it's not
You are
true
stagnant. You are like a rock. You can't change.
because it's not true. Like I have like anybody that truly lives in a diverse environment with a lot of different people from a lot of different social different like social backgrounds and has been exposed to a lot of random shit in their lives, you are aware that it's very hard to look at one group and be like, yeah, this is the reality of the entirety of the fucking planet. And anything you tell me is just anything otherwise, any other facts or any studies or any other scientific research that has been done that proves me wrong is bullshit because I don't want it to be true and
Yeah.
because it fundamentally goes against my rules, and a lot of it is also out of fear because these people have
Yeah.
like have created their whole entire personalities in some cases, or their entire way of to live life around these just factually incorrect views of the world. And so when they get challenged, it's almost like how do I say? It's almost like a survival instinct, like
Yeah.
sort of reaction to just be like, no, no, that can't be true. Like if that's true, then I'm like I'm a fraud, right? Like I'm nothing,
Yeah.
and they can't accept that.
Who would
Uh,
have thought that conservative ideologies come from a place of insecurity and fear?
yeah, and
Let's keep
that's.
going.
But
Let's
wait,
keep
just
going.
one more thing I want to say. That's
Ah,
why.
sorry.
That's very short. Just one phrase, basically, which is why being able to admit when you're wrong is something that not everybody can do.
Yeah.
Not being able to admit when you're wrong, refusing to admit when you're wrong is what weak people do. Keep that in mind. If you are truly a strong person, then you are able to recognize when you're wrong and you're able to learn from it and to become a better person from it.
Yeah. That's why it's a virtue.
Yeah.
So, just to top off this idea of the red pill, once again, the red pill is the basis for these types of individuals. But let's try and define a little bit who actually believes in the red pill. First of all, you have, of course, people that subscribe to misogynistic ideologies, such as Andrew Tate, pickup artists, etc. Then you also have people like Jordan Peterson, who are more akin to incel culture,
Yeah. Oh my
which
God.
is
Jordan
a,
Peterson is so
yeah,
cringe. Like
he is, he is.
you know
He's the
the
type of guy who would unironically wear a suit of the Joker. Not
do
the
you,
Joker suit, like a suit with the Joker's face.
yeah, you know, like there's no real Ben. Oh, there's no real men anymore. Oh, it's like he's crying about how there's no real men anymore. It's so pathetic. Jesus Christ.
So
Sorry.
we have finally arrived at the main topic, which is actual incel culture. And I think that before we dive into the nitty gritty, it might be a good idea for us if we explore the past of this culture, the subculture, and how it came to be. So, the incel subculture started, as so many other things do, with a queer female Canadian student who was insecure about her sexuality and didn't have any type of partners. And she was pretty distraught about that. So she created a website between 1993 and 1997 and went by the name of Elena, if I'm not mistaken.
Yeah, that was the name, I think.
Yeah. And she grabbed the world's involuntary celibacy. Ah, God damn it! I can never say this thing.
Celibate.
Help me. Celibacy. Involuntary celibacy. Yeah, involuntary celibate, and joined them together, making the word incel, which later turned into, as we know it,
Incel.
incel. Elena left the website near the 2000s as she became more comfortable with her sexuality and came to the conclusion that she was bisexual, and handed the moderation of the website to a complete stranger. But at the time, while she was still in the website, it was mainly a place for people of all genders to voice their frustrations with their lack of romantic and sexual partners. However, as time went on, other websites were created mimicking this sort of community, such as Incel Support was actually a nice place, moderated specifically very much against misogyny, and had a plethora of people with different backgrounds, ethnicities, genders, etc. But then you had other places like loveshy.com, which was target of a series of migrations of people that came from extremely right-wing extremist groups from 4chan and Reddit.
4chan. Who doesn't love
Yeah,
4chan? I'm scared of that
yeah.
website.
I've never went to 4chan for a
Me
reason.
neither. I said, oh, Jesus.
Okay. So as time went on, the and the site with its lack of moderation became more and more toxic. I read a study. I can't tell you exactly what the name is, but if you go to the Wikipedia page of the word incel, it's one of the studies that's fixated on the tab criticisms, where the main author of the study said that the reason why he thought that these sites had become so extremist was because you had a lot of people with the same types of frustrations who were most of the time socially awkward and already held a predisposition to having more extreme worldviews. So, as they talked and theorized in this closed space, things became progressively more extreme. So, with that in mind, we arrive at a new phenomena. The red pill is the basis for all of the manosphere. But if you look into the incel community, you have something else, which is the black pill. Now, the black pill is a lot more extreme, is the best way that I can describe it, and is a whole new level of belief within the incel culture. And as such, there are a lot of incels that don't subscribe or don't know about the black pill and just keep on living with their beta red pill things.
Okay.
That's the best way that I can explain it. But the black pill is based on this notion that the idea of individual attempts to achieve a sexual relations, which remember is the most important thing for them and is the thing that constitutes the entirety of human relations to these people, is futile. And it completely rejects this notion that you should not hope to have a sexual relationship, to the point where people that hope for these types of relationships are actively bullied and shunned and ostracized completely as the worst of the worst. So, going talk topic by topic, the main core idea of the black pill is that the sexual market value is genetic. Now, what that means, once again, we go back to the idea of a sexual market. So, what do these men believe is that as a man, your physical attractiveness is the only thing that dictates your likelihood and value to the opposite sex that would let them consider to have a relationship with you. And it's the idea that this is fixed and cannot be changed as it is based in genetics. They have whole diagrams for
Oh
the differences between
God, the diagrams. I've
yeah
seen the
the virgin
diagrams.
skull and the Chad skull. The Chad is the
Uh,
20% males, which goes into a law which I took out of the blog, but I really wanted to keep it in, which is the let me Google it in a second. Something something law. It's basically the law that in a group of people where bigotry and social anxiety ran rampage, it is only a matter of time until they turn to cranial structure as a way to explain why a certain group of people are inferior to one another.
yeah.
There are a lot of racism parallels that I could make right now, but I won't.
I
So,
mean, there's a lot of those because there's the diagrams don't only apply to the men. There's also diagrams for the women,
to the women,
and
yeah,
the one with the women are extremely racist. Like you always have like uh black women, Asian women, Like generally, people of color are usually higher rated, and the higher you go, the higher the percentage of white people. Like the more white people are present, the higher you go into the tiers, which really just shows that like these are. I mean, this is very much like a white, like a lot of the incels and like this whole group. There's also a lot of white people. There's mostly white kids.
Yeah, it's
Uh,
mostly white men, middle-aged men,
yeah, and
middle-aged
so
and young adults.
yeah, and so it's that's yeah. There's definitely a lot of. I mean, of course there is like that's their whole culture. Like it's all
Yeah,
based on like right wing bullshit. So of course you're gonna be racist. I mean, surprising, right? It's
yeah, yeah. So it once again, it's the idea that your value as someone that can have a relationship, and in terms of relationship status, your value as a man is genetically set at birth. And I think also wrote this part in the blog. I think that the best way to describe this notion was how Counterpoints, the philosophy YouTuber, described it on her video essay about incels, which I found really good, entertaining, fascinating, and used as a way to start my research. Where she claimed that this whole thing can be dumbed down to the notion that you are a perma virgin.
yeah,
So, now, by going from the idea that you are a perma virgin, you go into the idea that, of course, sex and relationships are completely out of reach. And once again, these people think that sex and physical relationships are the basis for human happiness. So if you can't have those, you arrive at the notion that happiness is impossible, which concludes into the last step of this Jacob's ladder of nightmares, that there is nothing you can do except LDAR, meaning lay down and rot. It's an acronym popular within the incel community. Now, this is a dogmatic helplessness about life in general. And it has been proposed that it mostly comes from catastrophizing. It's this phenomenon that mostly comes from a reality where anxiety and depression leads you to inner apocalyptic conclusions from mundane problems and anxieties. A good example with incel culture in mind would be something like you experience rejection and isolation for the first time. Therefore, you come to the conclusion that you are unattractive to women, meaning that you will never be attractive to women and yet you will be forever alone. And if you are forever alone, you will always be unhappy. So, women, women are the cause for your problems, and feminism empowers them to keep doing these terrible things. And things are only getting worse, meaning humanity is doomed, but there is nothing you can do, so you should only lay down and rot. Is the like can you from logically and realistically take the first step and one by one have them all be true?
no,
Uh, but the gigantic fucking gap between you were rejected to you should lay down and rot speaks volumes to a snowball effect caused by a toxic masculine ideal and social anxiety.
I mean, yeah, like the people who go down the rabbit hole of the manosphere are not people. I mean, to be fair, if you take Alpha's example, it's also very hard to picture in a way because he's picturing it or he's explaining it as like this very fast progression, right? But it isn't.
Yeah,
You
you know,
always need to remind that this is like a thing that's like been happening for years, right? As a kid, you get rejected, and then as a teenager, you get rejected again, and then you feel unattractive because you're going through puberty, and there's a lot of different things. And then if you grew up in the wrong household, if you grew up in the wrong environment, if you grew up in an environment that doesn't value women, then the probability that you will kind of draw the conclusion that it's rather the woman's fault than yours, then that's big. And then you could, start getting into the red pill, and then the black pill is like the last step you can
yeah, it's the
take, which
last
is
straw.
where like where even the red pill doesn't even apply to you anymore, where everything is so bad in your mind, everything is so hopeless and just absolutely like doomed, that you just again just give up, and you have this sort of mentality where nothing is worth nothing is
Yeah,
worth anything
I
anymore.
literally wrote down nihilistic in front of the point.
Yeah, because and then it's also like this idea that like women are worthless. Like don't. It's like
Yeah,
the bro.
that's where
Don't
I'm
worry
going
about.
next.
It's like
Toilets.
bro. Don't worry about the bitches. Like it's
Yeah, yeah.
that whole mentality, but like taken to a whole new level to the point where you completely like disregard women as human beings, and
Once
then
again,
just.
don't spoil it. I'm going there next.
I'm sorry. All right, go ahead then. Just take
Okay,
it from me.
so let's pretend that Red didn't say anything.
All right. All right.
Uh, as you could see from both in the black pill and the red pill, women are extremely fucking degraded. But especially in incel culture, where they don't even call them women, they call them femoids.
Females. This was this female.
Shut up. It's not even female, it's femoid,
Yeah.
which is even worse. That is if they didn't call them bitch, cunt, etc., etc. Uh, there is an complete objectification of the female sex. And there is this insecure hatred that burns within this community to the point where the idea of government mandated sexual partners or even sexual violence is extremely popular within them. And that is not to say like the amount of members that say and claim that they themselves in public ostracize women and assault them. And this also leads to another facet of the incel culture, which is their complete adoration for depression and suicide. So, before we dive deep into that, I wanted to share an anecdotal story. So, when I was younger, I went through some dark times that definitely reflected on the information that I searched and learned about. All of a sudden, my recommended videos were about serial killers, uh, folklore, but like dark folklore, creepypastas, which now seems stupid, but when I was younger, it was actually terrifying. And it ranged from catastrophes and massacres in history to ancient forms of torture. And I was called out for it. And I looked back and said, oh shit, this ain't good. And started trying to change. Now, when I look into this type of culture and see the level at which they take the idea of self harm psychologically and the adoration that they have to ending themselves, it I can't help but remember those times where it's basically a form of self harm as you just continue to go down proverbial rabbit hole deeper and deeper into these ideas of hurting someone else and hurting yourself. They have tags, correct me if I'm wrong, right? But you might know more about this than I do. On certain posts, which is just the abbreviation of suicide. In a way, whenever they want to describe a situation that will cause them to kill themselves. And there are dozens of comments on posts and threads that you can, if you Google, literally Google images of it, you find, I did while I was researching for this, about people saying that either one, the black pill left them in complete mental disarray and forced them to consult professional help for the first time in their lives, because the idea that there is nothing you can do and you will forever be unhappy in a state of misery led them to the breaking point. Or the people that didn't contact that professional help and just said, and most likely did, end it all because of this notion that they could never be happy. One of the things that you can see on incel communities is people posting their pictures with the sole reason to be completely demolished publicly. It's an adoration of self harm in the same way, once again, that you might cut yourself. And worst of all is if you try to call it out to them, they feel threatened and call those warnings literally chad-splaining. Because how could anyone but those top percent attractive males have anything positive to say about this reality? At worst, it's a nihilistic death cult, and hopefulness is completely despised. This is literally the note that I had after I stopped doing my research.
Yeah,
And
it's
it's saddening. It really is. Because it's people that throughout a life of bad experiences and getting into the wrong circles have completely destroyed any chance of at that moment having a happy and fulfillment filled life where they have the ability to better themselves. It's just, it's literally nihilistic. There is no point to it. Why would you try to do something else? You will never be happy. If you are hopeful, you are a stupid bitch. And I that's so sad to me.
yeah, and I don't know if you're really done with the
I'm
everything.
not done.
All right, uh,
Unfortunately.
all right, but you can go ahead and
Okay. But you can say your point because my next 2 points are going to be slightly different.
no, I was gonna say, which is like why this sort of actually is a thing, right? Like how
Go
is
ahead, go ahead.
like obviously there is the actual origin of the term and how this community was built, but like why is this happening, right? Why is this social phenomena like happening nowadays? And it's the best example to give you is that it's a unfortunately it's almost like a natural reaction to the fact that slowly we're becoming a more progressive and more accepting society. And the reason this is, and the reason I'm saying this is because although we are becoming a more accepting and more progressive society, masculinity and more importantly, toxic masculinity is still very present.
Yeah.
And as because when we say toxic masculinity, we don't just mean like we mean toxic masculinity and like traditional masculinity because masculinity doesn't have to be a bad thing
Yeah.
in general, but it's very traditional and very socially conservative masculinity, right? With the views that are inherently against this idea that everybody is equal, right? Because traditional masculinity, the whole idea is that the man is sort of a figure of importance, of safety, of bringing food to the table, which is basically what misogyny is kind of based on, right? Like this whole idea that men are better than women.
Yeah,
And
which is
so
stupid.
and
Sorry.
so the entirety of the last thousands of years, our society has been mostly based off of this. And now we are slowly trying, or we've been slowly trying to change this for many, many hundreds of years now. At this point, it's very slow, but it's in the last years, it has definitely, I would say, ramped up in a very
Good.
noticeable way. And so now it's this is almost like the I always in my mind I almost picture as like a visual thing of like you're trying to go one way, you're trying to go into one direction, therefore naturally it's almost like a natural, like it's like the universe trying to have some sort of balance, right? It's like you're trying to
Yeah.
go to one way, so naturally there's going to be people that are going to go the exact opposite way. This is the same thing with, for example, we talked about the queer community, LGBT community, where nowadays the more accepting and the more progressive we are towards gender and sexuality, the more homophobic and transphobic certain groups become. Right? As unfortunately, in many cases, there's these sort of like reactions start occurring. And it's the exact same thing with the manosphere. As women get constantly more rights and are considered constantly humans, which they are, and they rightfully deserve to be in places of power and have all these different things, and to be equals to everybody else, right? Everybody, regardless of gender, should have the same rights and the same opportunities in life. And so, as that happens, um, like traditional and toxic masculinity is just completely incompatible with this, right? And so these traditional masculinity and toxic masculinity is becoming completely obsolete, right? It no longer makes sense to exist because I mean it never really did. I'm not saying it ever did, but it's becoming completely and utterly pointless, right? There's no it needs it's slowly dying off, and unfortunately, a lot of men, that is all they have, right? That is all they have been taught their entire lives, and that is all they have to grasp onto. And so, much like I was saying before, this idea of being able to admit when you're wrong, and that people can't be out of fear, right? Of kind of uh, being wrong and being a fraud, etc. This is the exact same kind of thing, which is imagine your entire life you based your entire existence on one thing, and now suddenly you're realizing that, oh, hold on, life isn't this way, and everybody suddenly around me kind of hates me, or at least from your perspective, right? And then it kind of naturally brings you onto these communities, uh, unfortunately. But yeah, that's
Yeah.
what's why all this is happening, right? It's because the more the more we try to go onto one way, there's always going to be people that, out of instinct of survival, try to go the opposite way because they're conservative. They believe that that's the right thing to do. But the reality is that it slowly dies off. It
Yeah.
does. You look when you look at the past, you see it happening. So we're just going through a rough patch of, of human history when it comes to becoming more progressive and accepting of people.
Yeah. Now going a bit back into the depression. Uh, as you said, things have been ramping up, and a big factor as to why things ramped up was the creation of r slash incel on Reddit, which has been banned
That's
a
good.
bit late, but yes, it's been banned. And besides that, there was in and this is going to be might be a content warning. So if you have any problems with school shootings or something of the sort, you might want to sit the next part out. In May 23rd, uh, 2014, a 22-year-old called Elliot Roger killed 6 people and injured 14 by gun, knife, and car. He was cornered by the police, shot on the hip, and eventually killed himself. Now, the big problem with all of this was that Elliot Roger uploaded a video on YouTube explaining his reason behind the atrocities that he committed. And he claimed that he was hateful towards women for ostracizing him and envious of the other men that had sexual relationships in his place, was the way he described it. So he went to the University of California in Santa Barbara and shot and injured everyone he could come upon, basically. The worst part was the fact that he wrote a 195-page manifesto that he forwarded to his parents, to his psychiatrist, and gave to someone. I don't remember if it was something that he knew personally, if it was someone he only knew on the Incel space, or if he knew them at all, which uploaded it to the Incel communities. And he was glorified. He was absolutely glorified. And he was the first case of an incel openly committing such an atrocity and stating their reasoning as to why. And even worse, that he was glorified by other incels, just started this cascade of violent crimes and massacres committed by other members of this community. More recently, there was the Parkland High School shooting, where Nicholas Krutz, a 19-year-old, in 2018, February 14th of 2018, went back to his high school and shot upon multiple of his classmates, killing 17 people and injuring other 17s with an automatic rifle, which is another reason as to why we are completely anti-gun, but let's keep that conversation for another time. The problem was that Nicholas Kruz then tried to pretend that he was crazy. There is actually a documentary
Oh,
on
that
YouTube.
guy.
Yeah,
I've
that
seen
guy.
I've seen I've seen the clips.
You have seen the. I have seen the full video.
I haven't, but it's like that one like top down picture of like this small room, right? Where he's like
Yeah,
trying to
yeah.
act crazy. He's like trying to get the insanity plea, if I'm correct.
Which
Uh,
is stupid because insanity pleas still like
yeah, they're sort
horrible.
of temporary too, because like once you are deemed sane, then
You can still be trialed and
yeah,
kept as the same person. So
so it is what it
the
is.
the problem was that in chats he did explain that he was up to something, and he called the the previous murderer a fine gentleman, which is something of a trend within these communities where they see themselves as fine gentlemen, nice guys, literally.
Nice fellows, little guys, little buds, little
Okay.
weirdos.
There have been multiple attacks in 2020. A man came with a machete into a Toronto spa and killed a bunch of people. There was the vehicle ramming, once again in Toronto, the Aztec High School shooting. If you go to the Wikipedia page, you have a list of all the crimes that have been committed. Jesus Christ, of all the crimes that have been committed. Uh,
Committed, committed titty. They committed a titty.
okay, as and the internet, the Wikipedia isn't the best source of information, but there is one thing that it's great for, which is a place to find the references for those informations where the real information lies.
Yeah, true.
Yeah, so don't go to the Wikipedia searching for the truth. Go to the Wikipedia to search for the sources that have inspired the information that is present.
Yeah.
That is the best thing you can do. But yeah, the the primary reason as to why these crimes occur, I think it's obvious, but still, it doesn't hurt to talk about it. You are presented with this worldview that everything is hopeless. You will never be happy. Women are objects at best and the rightful target of your hate and frustrations at worst. And the top percent males that have fulfilling relationships are despicable, and should be despised.
And our
So,
Sims.
yeah. So you either lay down and rot, or you can always take revenge. That is the main idea, and nothing stops them.
Yeah, because
In
they
their
have nothing to
worldview,
lose.
yeah,
That's
and that's not just it. Humanity is going worse because of feminism. What are they doing if not saving others? It's the main issue with these types of communities is you have a time window where you can still leave, which is something that will be my last point and is extremely important too. But after a certain amount of time, there is a point where the radicalization, in my opinion, is just too much. You are led to believe that the people that tell you that life isn't that way are, as you said, simps, brainwashed, those that should be the targets of your hate and nothing more. You are chat-splaining to them. You are being a hypocrite because you say everything is easy when you have a perfect 10 out of 10 body, which is not, that's not reality. I have a friend. He's not good looking. He's not ugly, but he's not good looking. He's a 6 out of 10, 7 in a great day. But he is the funniest fucking person I know. And he has a girlfriend that is stunning. And they have been dating for years because of who he is. Like, I remember this book that I was reading because, yeah, I'm hip like that. Uh, sorry. Uh, I remember this book that I was reading where someone from the main character's family criticized the fact that he had a friend with a physical deformity. So he went up to them and said, "Would you rather have a spoiled carton of milk that is beautiful on the outside, or the most horrible design you've ever seen with the best milk on the inside?" And the guy said, without batting an eye, "I want the good milk, of course." Then why the fuck are you treating my friend like that? Why do you treat people like that? The reality is, yes, the visual matters. It matters as a way to signify to the world how you treat yourself. If you go to the streets with a good face that is completely bruised, uh, beard that goes to your arse, a t-shirt that's ripped, and you are all dirtied, everyone will think you're a bit of a creep. But that's to with actual importance. That's mostly it. It's the way that you treat yourself. You can be ugly, but if you go to the streets with a clean shave of beard or a well done shave, uh, well ironed and cleaned clothes, and smelling good, uh, by signifying that you take care of yourself, you are showing that. It's not about how you look per se, it's about the message that you bring to the world as to how you view yourself. So, the moment that you think that it's genetics. Nothing you can do to change that. You just go down to this rabbit hole where you worsen your situation because you become more and more preoccupied with your own visual self, which signifies to others that something is wrong. There is a clear time window up to a point where you can leave. You can. You can leave. The best way to leave those types of sites is to simply block everything and block everyone so that there's no way of reeling you back in. And if the situation is bad, you should always seek professional help. But the longer you are involved in those circles, th- your chances just worsen because it's not only your mind that's being transformed, it's you physically, which is such an important aspect of these people's worldview that it's basically the foundation, and it just gives them a reason to justify as to why they are right. Like, it's not that you have a bad bone structure. It's that whenever someone looks at you, you haven't bathed in days, you are dirtied, and you
Covered in
clearly
your
have
own shit and piss.
okay, you clearly have no sense of self-love and hygiene, which
Yeah.
is an extremely important thing as a signifier to a person's mental health. There is a reason as to why people with depression barely take care of themselves. They have no energy to do that.
There's also a subtle, unintentional form of self harm.
Yes. So whenever you signify to others around you that that is how you treat yourself, it's not because of your fucking genes or bone structure. It's because
Because
you are
you,
showing to everyone that you are unhealthy
yeah.
mentally.
Plus, it's like it's again, it's just like I said, it's a rabbit hole. Like you start off feeling this way, then you look even worse because of it.
Yeah.
Then you start
And there's
treating
worse in the
you
situation.
start treating people worse because you start treating people worse. They'll start treating you for worse, and then that confirms your feelings, and that makes you even worse. And it's just like you just keep going to that, just down that spiral.
Yeah.
And it's very rare where a lot of people do come out of it. To be fair, there's a lot of people that do come out of it, but there's
And then
also
kudos to them.
people
Truly.
that and to be honest, like I'm not gonna say who it is. Alpha, I feel like you probably can guess who it is, but you're not gonna say it either. But I definitely know somebody that's close to me that very much has had bad experiences in their life when regarding relationships, etc., which definitely had like they kind of dipped their toe into the manosphere, right? They kind of went in there, and thankfully, I'm not trying to flex or anything, but I'm just happy and I'm proud of them, or I'm happy that I was there for them because I know that if I weren't there for them to kind of stop them, where I was able to kind of give them a reality check, being like talking to them every day, trying to comfort them, trying to tell them and trying to make them rationalize what they were feeling, right? Trying to go through all these different processes. That it was the reason why they didn't end up going down that rabbit hole,
Yeah.
because
There was
also
someone to help them,
yeah,
to
because also
challenge their worldview.
because a lot of these people that also gone down these paths is because they're very lonely.
Yeah.
They don't have people around them that are able to give them a reality check. They're able to kind of make them go, "Hey, are you really think about what you're saying right now?" And having people around you really does help. Like if you are starting to feel like you're constantly desperate, like you're desperate for, love and stuff like that, and nothing works, and you always feel like you're starting to get frustrated, you're like, what the fuck is wrong with me? Or then you start kind of deflecting those kind of self-hatred feelings onto others. Like it's good to try to surround you with people that love you, I know that a lot of people can't, unfortunately, and that's
And I think that they find those people in these groups, which isn't true.
and so try to try to try to take a step back and try to talk to the people around you, to the friends around you, and you know it helps. I mean,
Expose yourself to other worldviews with an open mind.
true. That's another whole aspect of it is definitely that being always more sort of exposed to different worldviews definitely helps you not going down these sort of extremist rabbit holes because you're
Yeah.
constantly being challenged. Your ideas are being challenged. You are, as much as somebody might challenge your ideals, and as much as you in the moment are like, ah, you dumb bitch, kill yourself. Okay, that's a little harsh, but when you
Jesus.
even if in those moments you have these very extreme reactions, right? And you very much have a bad sort of reaction to it, right? It's it will stay in your mind because it will bother you, right? You'll be like, "Oh, this person was dumb." They'll say this, they say that, and then and it'll get you thinking about it even when you don't want to, right? So being exposed to other opinions, either you want it or not, either you agree with them or not, even if you are, for example, a leftist like me and Alpha that are consistently, unwillingly, or sometimes willingly, out of pure morbid curiosity, exposed to right wing dumbassery.
No, I am extremely exposed to dumb right wing dumbassery as a way to reassert my personal views and say to myself, "Yep,
Yeah,
I
but
got this right.
but
They
it's
didn't.
it's still good because
I
even
am doing that."
it's, and I think Alpha can agree with me with this. Where there's definitely moments where you'll hear like, for example, an interview with a right wing figure or just some random right wing aligning person on the streets, and they'll say something that is preposterous, right? And you'll start thinking about it, and you're like, I know that I don't agree with this, but I've never really fully delved into it. I know that there's nothing really that can change my view on this because if it's something that's very like clear, right? Like you're not going to be questioning something that's like really obvious to you, but like you haven't really like sat down and been like, all right, so why do I think this?
I have a perfect example.
Right, go
I
ahead.
was told in a common thread that eating honey was despicable. It was a vegan, by the way. It was despicable because the production of honey was uh, against animal moral ethics. And I just spent 1 hour going into the rabbit hole learning why beekeeping is one of the most pro activities towards animal rights.
Yeah.
Because if bees don't want to work, they just leave. And you can't make them. Honey is a natural production that they do to feed their colonies.
True.
It is like there was a story of a guy, an anecdotal story of a guy that worked at a construction site and he did beekeeping. And one time, the person that was narrating got out of its job and saw that there was a bunch of bees in the parking lot. So the bees had left their colonies because they didn't like it and gone towards their beekeeper. The guy just grabbed another colony that was empty, put it on the ground, waited for the bees to go back in, put it on his truck, and drive off. And there was a person
Kidnapping
saying
bees.
that honey was immoral because honey was the guts of the bee that they spewed out.
I mean, beekeeping and definitely, I mean, bees are very important
They're
uh,
extremely important.
to our environment. So keeping them alive, keeping them healthy, allowing them to, reproduce and
Yeah.
doing all these different things is just a positive thing. And
Like,
being able to also, because like honey at the end of the day is a reusable resource, right? Or reusable, that's not the right
yeah,
word.
and it's also used as medicine.
It's a very it's good. It's also very good and healthy
Not to
alternative to
sugar.
sugar.
Yeah.
And so generally honey is deemed as like one of these like sort of like, I mean, isn't it like known as like the something gold, right? It's like the um I forget what it's called, but it's like it's very much sometimes compared to gold because of also its color. But like there's a certain term
Yeah.
which is like it says like it's nature's gold, I think, or some shit like that. Which is funny because
Which
gold
is funny
is,
because gold is nature's gold.
yeah, whatever. But you know what I mean. Like it's definitely
Yeah, yeah.
it's a very important thing. Plus, it's like it can survive for an unfathomable amount of time, and it's like there's literally like preserved shit in, like you can preserve shit in it so well.
Everyone,
So
the Politdigm Podcast. We go from homicides to honey.
to honey, to, bro, yeah, it has to be. But yeah, like honey is a very positive thing, and whilst bees are awesome,
Yeah.
we only hit on flies. Fuck flies, they are
And
stupid,
wasps.
and they land on you, and
And
they're dumb,
wasps.
and they wake me up at night,
And
and they
wasps.
go bzz on my ears. Fuck them, nah.
And
Uh,
mosquitoes too.
I mean, I know they're probably also important. Say that's something that I'm guessing they probably are important to our environment, but hey,
I haven't been told that they
fuck
are, but I
them.
have no reason why. I just wanted to end the podcast on one last thing. She's going back to the visual thing. I'm not going to sit here and say that visuals aren't important, because they are, in the same way that a book cover is important. If you go outside and you are dressed with a certain type of clothing, you will more easily create bonds with other people that are dressed the same way. Like, I ride a motorcycle. I go outside with a helmet
You go
and a
outside.
jacket. Yeah, I do. I go to school,
Damn,
unfortunately.
you
And I
touch
get
grass.
nods. Yeah. And I get nods from people on motorcycles because they identify me as part of a group of people that ride motorcycles and like motorcycles.
In the same way that in some towns, some smaller towns in the U.S., for example, there's these funny little figures that no
Pointy hoods.
that most people don't like. We personally don't like them at Paul Time, which wear these funny, very honestly kind of ugly. I'm not a big fan of them. Pointy white hoods, which when they
I
see
think
each other,
Tarantino made the
they
best AKA joke ever, which is the fact that I can't see fucking shit in this.
instead they recognize each other as KKK members, right? As racist pieces of shit.
No,
So
no, 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 no. They aren't racist.
please say psych, please. What's
No, 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 no. They say that
Oh,
they
okay.
aren't
Jesus
racist.
Christ.
No, holy shit.
Alpha's career is gone. That's the next blog. Jesus
How
Christ.
I lost my friend with Brother
How I
77.
lost everything. An autobiography by Alpha.
But yeah,
uh
that was basically it for me. I have to admit, it was a pretty hard blog to write because I told myself I'm not gonna feel sympathetic for these pieces of shit, but I couldn't.
I
I
mean,
couldn't help myself.
it's very it definitely is convoluting because you on one side, it's funny because like a lot of the shit I'm talking about right now, I was actually thinking about this morning as I was getting ready because I read the blog last night. I was, I prepared it this morning when I was before I went to school to publish it, and so I was like getting ready and I was thinking about the blog and I was thinking like it's exactly what you're saying. It's like it's very hard to, because like one side you're like fuck these people, they're huge pieces of shit, they do horrendous
Yeah,
shit, they treat people like crap, they're like
like
literally
shit.
like they're a stain in human like existence and they're the thing holding us back to being a successful I don't know, intergalactic species. I don't know, I'm getting a little ambitious here, but you get what I mean.
Yeah,
And I was thinking that, but then it's also like you look at yourself, you look at your own like life experiences, and then you compare them to these other people's, and then why rather either you want it or not, you're going to see some parallels. Like I have never even come close to even entering the manosphere because I could never. I'm just not the target audience, uh,
yeah.
and so. But I
Like
have
shit.
been.
I would be a target audience and I can't do it.
But I have.
I am a lonely, white, male that has been rejected more than once.
Yeah, but I myself have also been rejected. I recently came out of a relationship which definitely did not leave me in a good mental space. And yet I at no point was ever even slightly close to, being like, now I'm going to start becoming a huge sexist piece of shit.
Yeah.
So I'm not the target audience, but it's very hard not to draw, like parallels to your own life. And so it's also that also creates a level of, exactly like you said, is some sort of like empathy for them because you're like, fuck, all right, these people clearly need help. Like they are in a
Like
very
shit,
bad
I
space.
have been the guy that was lonely in the corner
So it's
and
it's
socially awkward.
yeah, and
But
so
yeah,
it's hard not to be empathetic towards these people, and having empathy is good. Like it's
yeah,
what like it's what separates us from the psychos. And so
yeah,
uh
literally.
literally, so it's like it's normal to have empathy, right? But it's also you also need to be able to recognize what you shouldn't have empathy for. In this case, their
Yeah,
actions.
tolerate intolerance.
And so, because there's also not really the point of this podcast, and something we could actually talk about in a different episode, which is how a lot of times having like a centrist point of view towards issues is very hurtful, even when you're perceiving yourself as not being hurtful. When you're trying to be in kind of in the middle of stuff, right? You kind of having like this. No, I'm going to have this hip and cool perspective where I'm not going to choose sides, but that is inherently hurtful towards being progressive, etc.
Yeah,
Because
Mr. Miyagi said it best. If you walk on the left side of the left side of the street, you're doing it good. If you walk on the right side, you're doing it bad. If you walk in the middle,
you're
you
gonna
get
die.
smushed like a grape.
So it's, for example, in this scenario, when you look towards a person in the manosphere, it is good to be able to recognize what they do wrong. It's also it's good to be able to recognize that these are people that require help. It's also good to be able to being open to having dialogue with them, and not also just looking at them being like these are dumb, weak fucks. They deserve nothing. They deserve what they're getting. Having that sort of reaction towards it is also not very helpful because like what are you achieving with it, right? You're not really doing any good with it. So
I
being
don't like
open,
liberals.
being
PSA, Fedor 76.
being open to having dialogues with these people, either it pisses you off or not in the moment because it will it definitely will because you're like what the fuck, but it's still good to be able to talk to these people. And so having these sort of behaviors versus just kind of being in the middle where you're kind of like, no, I kind of get it though, like kind of get it, but like it's also bad, but I kind of get it. You're like you're not having a position on either side, which is well not good because you're not really doing anything, right? And then you're just kind of letting everything happen. But we should talk, we should write a blog about that, about
Yeah,
how
why centrism is like I'm once again going to talk about my favorite video game ever, Disco Elysium, where you can take political sides as extremists as fascism and communism, but you get an achievement called the most laughable centrist if you take the political center more than 11 times.
yeah, because like you can't like the most extreme, and I mean it's not wrong this example, but like you can't be a supporter of BLM whilst also looking at the KKK and going, hmm,
I
I
get where those guys are coming from.
they have some points that not
They
compatible.
do. The hats don't help.
The hats don't help. They have ugly hats, but everything they say is awesome. No, I'm joking.
No. The hands are pointy, therefore they have points.
Ah, that's a shit joke, Alpha.
It
But
is. It
uh,
truly is.
but like again, because like if you go, because then if you go to one side, they won't accept you because you inherently are against their values, and then if you go to the other side, you support a hate group that hates them. So it's like you're not doing anything. You're not doing anything helpful for society, and by being at the center, you might not be as hurtful as the right wing extremist groups, but you're giving them sort of like a pat on the back. You're not pushing them forward, but you're like, I'll let it slide. And then
You
you're
are allying
inherently,
yourself with both perspectives. Therefore, you are betraying both perspectives.
yeah, and by fuck, that's not the word.
Okay, good.
By doing that, you inherently are hurting the the progressive and good movement anyways, not as much as a KKK member, but since the fact that you don't inherently are against it, you know you're letting it happen, right? And so yeah, that's, I guess, a weird little tangent we went on the end.
But yeah,
uh
I think that's basically it.
yeah, yeah. So again, thank you so much for watching. Again, if you enjoyed, don't forget to support us. Don't forget to join our socials. Don't forget to join our Discord. And is there a little last message you want to leave, Alpha?
Uh, sure. This it's a thing that I've been thinking all throughout the process of writing this blog and making this podcast. Life is hard. No one says otherwise. But there is no such thing as the idea that you are forever and utterly powerless and you should lay down and rot. There is always something you can do to try and better your situations or better the situations of those around you. And by taking a nihilistic worldview, you do nothing but allow yourself to fall into despair. I like to think that we might not have a meaning of life, but that gives us the freedom to make our own meanings. And the idea that because our like half of the population is supposedly rejecting me, I should perish and so should others, is such a gigantic leap of false logic that still hurts so many people, truly saddens me. It's not black and white. People are, one person is infinitely complex. That's why we can't treat people as numbers. You can't say, oh, 100 people die, that's still better than 120 people dying. That's not how it works. 100 people still died. One person losing their lives is already a tragedy. More than one is still a tragedy, and there is no better strategy. There could have been worse outcomes, perhaps, but it's not a better situation.
Yeah.
The most important thing is whenever you join and subscribe to these types of hateful ideologies, you always reduce other people to reductive ideas and objects that can be the target of your hate because they aren't people, they are what you make of them. And that's what happens with incel culture towards women. So the moment that you start recognizing that these are not objects, these are people, maybe is the moment that you can start recognizing that your ways of viewing them are flawed. And that might be the most important step you can take towards leaving that type of reality. The moment where you come to the realization that your internal logic is skewed is the most important. And if you can do that, you can save yourself. So if please you are in a situation like this, or you know someone that is in a situation like this, it's not hopeless. You can always do something to help. That goes both for the people that watch this happening and the people that are still in these types of scenarios. Life isn't life isn't just reduced to you should lay down and rot. You shouldn't. You should live. You should allow yourself to be rejected, feel sad, but have the ability to come back. Like, every person that you like doesn't have to like you back. You aren't entitled to human affection, but doesn't mean that you are deprived of it because of genetics or a fatalist idea. You can always do something to better yourself. And that's what you should do. You should strive to better yourself. Maybe then you might find that the barrier keeping you from having those fulfilling relationships that you so desperately seek or seeked, it isn't uh, a 20% of men just stealing all the women. It's that you yourself weren't ready and weren't in a state of being that would open up yourself to being able to have those relationships. It is, at the end of the day, not that you are ugly, it's that you as a person didn't attract someone else. And that's good because your personality, you can always work on that. That's that's basically it. There is always something you can do to better yourself. And physical relationships aren't the end all be all of happiness. Like, I am happy when I see the beautiful view next to my house, when I read a good book, when I watch a good TV show, when I play my guitar, when I go talk to my friends or ride on my bike, or even when I'm home sitting at a computer recording a podcast with a dear friend of mine. There are always places where you can find happiness. That's basically it.
Speaking of finding happiness, the next thing you should find is the definition of the word quick, because holy shit, that was not a quick little message. that
I'm
was
sorry,
that
it's
was what, 7 minutes? Fucking hell.
6 minutes.
Um, yeah, I agree. It's a good
I thought you were
message.
going to say, speaking of happiness, you should find the links to our Patreon.
Which will make us greatly happy. That's not the
It's
word.
not that. That's not how it works.
It would make us happy because we get to make better stuff. Uh,
That is how it works.
and that'll make you happy. And it's a circle jerk of happiness. Whoa, what?
Oh, Jesus Christ.
Whoa, that's not what I meant to say. I mean, was it? I don't know. Anyways,
Okay,
thank you
I
all so
take the
much.
fifth.
Thank you all so much for watching. Thank you
Truly.
for being here. Thank you for giving us your attention, and we will see you all in the next episode. Goodbye, everybody.
Have a nice one.